Hiya and welcome to Let's Talk Loughborough, the brand new podcast from Loughborough University. We are bringing interesting interviews from staff and students across the university, so stay tuned to find out more. My name is Jemima and I'm your host. I'm a second year student here at Loughborough and I study English with Digital Humanities.
And I'm Soph, I'm Jemima's co-host. I work in internal communications at the university, looking after student and staff comms.
So we thought there was no better way to start off our first episode than to have a chat with our new Vice-Chancellor, Professor Nick Jennings. Hello, Nick.
Hi, both.
So thanks so much for joining us today, Nick. And now, as it's our first episode, we thought that would be a great idea before the interview we get to know you a bit more with an icebreaker question. And now that we've tested this out on our producer and her answer sparked a lot of debate, we want to hear what your answer is. So the question is, if you could watch one film for the rest of your life, what would it be?
So I found this an incredibly difficult question to answer. But in the end, I came up with the Star Wars film. So the original Star Wars film was my first thought. And sort of my thinking there was, it was one of the first films I remember going to see as a child. So I went to the cinema where I was growing up. And in fact, I went on 2 consecutive days, which was a very exciting thing to do. And I really was dazzled by it, by the type of film that it was and sort of the special effects and sort of the whole vision of the future. And it was one of the first films I genuinely remember. And sort of, so I think if I had to listen to it watch it for the rest of my life, I think I chose that because that would help me remember being young.
I remember, so we're a very big Star Wars family in my family. So every year new Star Wars would come out, especially in the recent times, and they'd take me and my brother to go watch it in the cinema. So it just reminds me of family. So what would be the film that you watch for eternity?
I feel like I should choose something that's like sensible or has a really good story. But I will be honest, the film that I would choose is Shrek 2 because it just makes me so happy. And it's a similar vein of, it reminds me of being a kid. It's something that we watch every year in my family. So I think it's something that would make me happy. If I've got to watch it for the rest of my life, I think it needs to be something that makes me happy. But the reason we chose this question is because our producer had a very controversial choice of The Impossible, which is a film about the tsunami. So we kind of had a whole debate about it in our office, about whether you choose something that's kind of heartwarming and funny or something that has a little bit more of an intense story. What would yours be, Jemima?
Mine is similar to you, Soph. My favourite film of all time is Nativity, the Christmas film, which is controversial because people don't think you can watch it outside of December, but I disagree. It has great songs, a great soundtrack, but also I can recite the whole film. It just reminds me of like happy times and Christmas, which is like my favourite time of year. There you have it. We have a lot of range of films here, from Star Wars to Nativity and musicals. But we're going to get into the nitty-gritty questions here submitted by our staff and students via our Instagram. So make sure you keep an eye on Loughborough University's Instagram so you can also send in your questions for further episodes. So our first question today is, how have your first weeks been at Loughborough, Nick?
Thank you. So this is the end of my 4th week. So I've done 4 whole weeks here now. And this is the Friday that I felt least exhausted and least my head pounding with new information and people I've met. So I take that as progress. It's been brilliant fun. I've really enjoyed starting to get used to the institution. I've tried to be out. I've been visited a number of schools, the professional services. I've been to the student union. I've been to sports events and sort of really trying to get a real feel for the institution. So I would say it's been very intense, trying to figure out what all the bits are and how they all fit together. But I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed meeting the staff. I've enjoyed meeting the students and sort of getting that real palpable enthusiasm for the institution from everyone I've met.
That sounds brilliant. Would you say you've been thrusted into the Loughborough bubble in your 4 weeks?
Definitely.
So our second question is, delivering Loughborough's vision is key for you. So what are your main objectives for the university to achieve this vision?
So we're in the process of developing a new strategy for the coming years. And what I want us to be able to do is to emphasize some things that we already do, but place maybe a bit more focus on them. So clearly our undergraduate and our student experience, as you all know, is fantastic, and our students love it. I hope you love it as well. And so it's important that we really keep a focus on that. But in addition to that, I'm keen that we also make more of our research and innovation. So I think as a top class university, we need to have a slight more focus on those things and try and make sure that they're as comparable and as strong as we are around education and student experience. The second thing I want to be able to do is to make sure that we have a recognition and a profile, particularly internationally, I would say, that is comparable with our national reputation. So I think we're very well known in the UK. I wish we were known for a broader range of things than perhaps what some people know us for. So I'm keen to broaden that profile and really try and see what we can do internationally. And of course, internationally, we're known in some areas again, but sort of I would like that to be broader. And the third and final area that I'm keen to say do a bit more around is equality, diversity, and inclusion. And we have lots of fantastic initiatives going on, possibly slightly too many. I would like us to coordinate a few of those, but for me, sort of those sit at the heart of a strong university. And I think it's an area where we need just to get a bit better on.
That sounds amazing. There's a lot of things that we're looking forward in the next strategy, and we're really excited to see what happens and what comes out of it. So our next question is, what areas do you think, you've kind of covered this a bit, but what areas do you think Loughborough needs to improve in?
So I would say that those for me are the big three areas where we've got work going on, and in fact we've got really good work going on, and part of what I want to be able to do and improve upon is not only the areas themselves, but sort of the way that we communicate about them. As part of my interviewing process, I kept sort of reading stuff and working quite hard to understand what we were doing, and I came across some fantastic activities going on, but I had to work moderately hard to find them, is what I would say. And so I would like us to be a bit less modest about some of the fantastic things that we do. So I would like us to tell our story better.
Very interesting. Definitely a good one to know for me, seeing as I work in the internal comms team. So I think I would agree with you there. I think we need to be even better at shouting about all the stuff we do, because we do an awful lot here. Yeah,
exactly. It really is that we shouldn't. It's an area I think we've just been a bit overly modest, a bit overly quiet about things, and I think we need to tell the country and the world about all the great stuff that goes on here.
Definitely,
I agree. So moving further on, we're going to talk about career journey questions with you, Nick. So you did your undergraduate in computer sciences, and then you went on to study artificial intelligence at a postgrad level. What drew you to this area, and what skills did you learn during this time that have helped shape your career?
So I was sort of really fascinated by what you could get computers to do. So I'm old enough to remember sort of when I first got my hands on a computer and did my first programming, and that was while I was still at school. We had a BBC microcomputer arrive at the school, and I remember it being a moderately big deal. Is that the school has a computer, and it was a computer at that time, and that was all very progressive. And sort of, I then started to be interested in programming it and sort of getting it to do various things. And so that's what sort of got me interested in computer science, was the ability to do interesting things with a computer. And then when I got to university, sort of I understand a bit more about the full potential of things that computers might be able to do. And we had quite a lot, I would say, sort of in my undergraduate studies at Exeter about artificial intelligence and the idea that a machine could actually try and do some smart things that would require intelligence if done by a human, I just found really fascinating. And so I just wanted to find out and to discover more about that, and that's what led me into a PhD. And in fact, I haven't gone very far from that, so I'm still fascinated by that question. And sort of I spent most of my research career trying to make sense of it.
It's really interesting. I come from like a humanities background, so like STEM and computer science kind of just creeps me out sometimes, especially like artificial intelligence and like what we think it's going to be in the future, and you know, all those sci-fi films and where AI robots take over the world. But it is really interesting what computers can do, especially in like a modern society in which we're using our laptops and our computers and our phones every day to do stuff, and how it can bring us forward and stuff.
And it's a very interesting area from that point of view, because conceptually it's quite easy to understand what it means for a machine or a robot to be smart. And then sort of throughout history, people with vivid imaginations have built films and books upon it, and sort of I would say rarely does the AI system do anything positive. It's often the bad guy in the film, and sort of some of the stuff that's written is an interesting sort of thought and possibility, but is so far away from the reality of practical artificial intelligence and where we are with the state of the art. So I'm reasonably sanguine that I'm not, and I would venture that you're not going to live in a world where we're ruled by robots.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that may or may not comfort you, but sort of it's genuinely.
That's a great thing to know, that I will live in a world where I'm safe from AI.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting. Similarly to you, Jemima, I did a humanities degree, and now I work in a field that is just so far from STEM. So it's always so interesting to me that there is such a wide stretch of careers that are involved in STEM, and the amazing things that you can learn from computers. It just completely blows my mind.
And one of the nice things I would say about AI is that you've both classified it a bit as STEM, and clearly it has an element of STEM, but sort of one of the things I've really liked about AI is that actually it really does touch a whole range of subjects. So traditionally, sort of people who had come from AI also had a psychology background, or they had a philosophy background, as well as the sort of maths and engineering. And sort of these days we discuss about the ethics of AI, and we talk about use of AI in society and how it's going to transform our society and what it might do for our work. So I tend not to think of AI as only being a STEM thing. I think there are many disciplines that it can relate to, and I feel privileged to have worked in an area where I've interacted with people from all of those different backgrounds.
Super interesting. It's a really interesting perspective. I like that.
And touching a bit more about your personal research, would you like to link your personal research to Loughborough, and if so, how?
Thank you for that question. So I would say that my research, so we've spoken a bit about AI, I'm particularly interested in systems, so AI systems, where there's not just one AI component, there's not just one robot, there's not just one program, there's a whole load of them. Because if you can build one AI system, you're not going to stop there. We're going to want my AI system to interact with your AI system. So, you know, if we want to arrange to meet somewhere, then sort of my AI system can negotiate with your AI system to figure out a sensible place in order to do that. So my personal research has been very much about the interactions between different AI systems. And those interactions might be cooperation, so we might be part of a team or a group that are working together, or they might be a more competitive form of negotiation in the sense that you might be buying something and I might be selling something. And so that might be more like a negotiation. So my personal research within AI is very much about the social side of it. So cooperation, coordination, and negotiation. And sort of as a leader of an institution, I spend a lot of my life cooperating, coordinating, and negotiating. Now, fortunately, I think we're not at a stage where any of those activities are about to be automated or replaced by machines. But I think the insights that you can get from how you can construct systems where you want to try and get good outcomes from those interactions between autonomous components is a useful tool to have in your bag when thinking about running a complex institution with competing aims and objectives and finite resources.
Definitely. That's very interesting. I'm learning a lot about AI here from someone who knew nothing about it. This is very interesting to me. I'm going to maybe have to pick your brains a little bit further on this. You might have got me interested in this subject now.
Well, so great. Very happy to.
So moving on, you've mentioned you want to develop partnerships, and do you have any organisations, companies or industrial partners you'd like to Loughborough to partner with in the future?
So for me, partnerships were a really important aspect. So I spoke about research and innovation, and I've been particularly enthusiastic in my career about doing research, but I've been particularly enthusiastic about doing research that goes out into the world and actually makes a difference. So it's actually used by somebody or some organization for some good, for some social good or some commercial good. And I think sort of partnerships are an important way of doing that. And I think it's a great testament to the history of Loughborough that we have always had quite a strong series of connections and partnerships, both locally. We here have we have a fantastic science park just adjacent to our campus where I would like us to have more partnerships and interactions. And so for me, that partnership piece is really important. So I'm keen that we have partnerships both with large companies, with small companies, with companies in the UK and companies around the world. And I think vibrant, healthy partnerships are really fundamental to letting a successful university really be successful. I think it's difficult to do all of those things on your own. So I don't want to name particular partnerships or companies, but I'm keen that we have a rich set of partners, large, small, national and international.
That's good that we have such a range of partnerships and that we're very clear in what we want to put forward in the future as a university and what we're looking for. It's really interesting. I'm very excited to see what partnerships we get into as well. So going back to the Loughborough experience, what are you most excited to learn from being at Loughborough?
So I'm really enjoying the experience of again a campus or an institution that has a significant campus. So it's been a while since I've worked at such one. I was an undergraduate at Exeter, as I've said earlier, and actually sort of that is a good campus. I enjoyed being on the campus during my university experience, and other institutions I've been at recently and throughout my career have been less of a campus-based feel. And I think you do get something extra and valuable from the campus experience. I think that sort of connection and togetherness I'm really enjoying reconnecting with, I would say. So sort of leading and operating in and working around a campus-based institution is something I'm very excited about. I'm very keen on sort of an institution that has so many sports facilities. I'm a very keen sports person. I've played sport all my life, and and to be able to see a cricket pitch from my office window is just, it's a joyous experience for me. So I'm keen to learn about all that we do in the sports and with culture and the arts. So I think there are so many opportunities, and one of the real privileges of my role is to be able to really look across us as a whole institution.
I think definitely one thing that I know as a student at Loughborough, a thing that we do amazingly is community, and like that campus feel that we have across campus. You can see it when you're walking across campus. Everyone's very happy to be here, and you get that togetherness and vibrancy of a campus feel. I think also we have so much to offer, like you said. So we really do have a lot, and I'm really excited for us to push that across the world, really.
Indeed we do. I completely agree, Jemima.
Definitely. And I would say from a staff perspective as well, it's a very big community feel. It's not just as a student that you feel like you've got this wonderful community. It's also, it translates into being a staff member as well, which is something that I really value as well.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Now speaking about leadership, Nick, what are the key skills needed to be a leader, and what advice do you have for students or staff who want to improve their leadership skills? Because as everyone knows, a Vice-Chancellor is a massive leader in university life.
There are many styles of leadership, and sort of the one that I find suits me and works for me is I'm very keen to listen and to ask and to engage. So I really like doing all of those things, and that's not only a factor of the fact that I'm new and there's plenty to ask and plenty to listen to. It's generally my style. So I really like to hear from people. I particularly like to hear sort of differing views and dissenting views done in an appropriate and respectful way. I quite like dissent. I quite like it when someone says, well, that's interesting, but have you thought about it from this angle? So I'm very keen to hear those diverse views and to try and be able to make sense of them. And then the other thing I find myself doing a lot at the moment is saying, I'm not quite sure what that means or what that is or how that connects to other things. And so I think the principle here is about not being afraid of saying, actually, I don't know about that, or I'm not quite sure what that is. And sometimes leaders are a bit afraid to do that. I've met leaders who wouldn't do that because sort of they felt that as a leader, they should know everything about everything. And I just don't believe that's possible for any large complex organization. And certainly I don't think it's possible for Loughborough University. And so I think be happy and be confident enough to say, actually, I don't know about that. Can you please explain that to me? Or actually, I'm not quite sure yet. Please give me a bit of time to think about it. So I think have the confidence to say those things, have the confidence to listen and to hear diverse views.
Those are great skills and great pieces of advice. I remember something my dad once told me is that it's okay to say I don't know, because then you learn and you get better. So it's always great to learn new things if you don't understand or don't know. And definitely listening is a key skill for a leader, because you always need to listen to the people around you so you can accommodate to them. So those are two great bits of advice. Leading on to our last question for today, and also talking a bit more about advice, what is the best piece of advice you've been given?
I reflected a bit on this, and I think the best piece of advice I have been given and I would give others is to do what you enjoy. So I felt I was interested in computer science, and so I went and did a computer science degree. I didn't have a particular plan or sort of mission of this is what this would lead to. I did it because I was interested in it. And the same for a PhD. You know, I didn't particularly know many people who'd done PhDs, but I was interested in it. I was interested in my subject, and I was interested in finding out more about it. And so I think throughout my career, I have followed and taken choices and opportunities of things that just seemed interesting and that I would enjoy. And I feel very blessed to have been able to make those choices. And so that's, I think, the best advice I have been given and I would give others.
It was a very strong piece of advice. I really like that.
I do too, especially it's just good to enjoy yourself and do stuff that you enjoy. Just continue to living life to the fullest and loving it and loving what you do. So that is it. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today. And it's been amazing to hear about your plans for Loughborough, and also a big welcome to Loughborough, even though you've been here for a month now. But I hope you've been settled in.
I have. I've been made very welcome. I'm starting to make sense of it and meet people. So thank you very much, Jemima. Thank you, Soph. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to us. And don't forget that you can subscribe to Let's Talk Loughborough on all streaming platforms, or you can watch the podcast on the Loughborough University YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to share any future podcast episode ideas you have with us. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.